Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for QuickBooks 101 with Damon Watkins. A couple Zoom etiquette items. We do have a raise your hand feature if you have questions throughout the webinar. Damon will be stopping periodically to allow for questions to be asked live. If you use the raise your hand feature, I will allow you to speak through the Zoom features here if you'd like to ask your question live. Otherwise, there is also a Q&A chat box that you can type your questions in, and I will present those to Damon throughout the webinar as well. All right, who is the Cal Poly CIE SBDC? So we are a small business development center, which is a national program with over 1,000 locations throughout the U.S. We are a resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Our center serves San Luis Obispo County business owners specifically. We provide professional one-on-one, no-cost free business counseling, as well as training and additional resources to small business owners. If you are not a client of the SBDC and would like to be connected to a lead consultant, the sign-up link is at the bottom here. It's bit.ly/CIE SBDC signup. Our email address is also slosbdc@gmail.com. All of our contact information is there on the bottom of the slide if you'd like to connect with us. Our sponsors today are the U.S. Small Business Administration and the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, as well as Maynard Cooper. So I will share a quick video welcoming you guys into our webinar from Maynard Cooper.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamal Al-Haj, and I'm a partner with Maynard Cooper & Gale in the firm's San Francisco office. Maynard Cooper is a full-service law firm of national reach with over 300 lawyers across 11 offices coast to coast. Our San Francisco practice focuses on advising emerging growth companies and venture capital firms, including with respect to equity management, financings, employment, and intellectual property matters. We are extremely proud to be a Founder Circle sponsor amongst an extraordinary circle of other dedicated philanthropists who recognize the immense value that Cal Poly's Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship bring to the SLO community. We hope that each of you enjoys this upcoming training and workshop and are able to incorporate the knowledge and know-how that will be presented shortly to further help grow, develop, and accelerate your businesses.
Alrighty, and without further ado, I will welcome Damon Watkins. Damon is the Cal Poly Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship Director of Finance and Operations. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Damon, you can take it away.
Okay, sure. How's that look, Olivia?
Looks good.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Damon Watkins. As Olivia said, I am the Director of Finance and Operations for Cal Poly CIE. I have been in this position for about 3 years now, and one of my responsibilities that I get to do is teach these classes for both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. First thing I'd like today is just to reiterate something that Olivia said. If you are not a client of the SBDC, I highly recommend that you sign up. There are a number of resources that are available through the SBDC, from consulting and working with consultants to help grow and expand your business. These are free services with no obligation, so taking advantage of them is a great resource for you and your business to reach a successful point in time. With that said, there are a couple of things I do like to go over before I start these sessions. This is only our third online session. We've kind of worked out most of the kinks with doing it online via these online platforms. With that said, at times we do encounter some technical difficulties. So if we do today, we just ask that you bear with us. Secondly, I would like to reiterate that this today is our introduction to QuickBooks Online 101. What that means is it's our most basic form of the training session, and we take it from a perspective that the people that we are presenting to have zero knowledge when it comes to QuickBooks Online. So I do apologize at the beginning, and some of the items that I go over are a bit rudimentary, but I have to ensure that everyone has the same knowledge base as we proceed forward. This is a beginner's class. We do an intermediate class for online and desktop, and then an advanced tax reporting class as well. So don't hesitate to sign up for those classes, as you will see them coming out shortly as well. With that said, starting to take a look at QuickBooks Online, one of the things that I always like to discuss before we even get into QuickBooks Online is doing your due diligence in regards to switching over to QuickBooks or setting up QuickBooks Online. There's certain steps that need to take place before you even take the actions of installing QuickBooks and or, in this case, utilizing QuickBooks Online. With that said, QuickBooks Online is a robust system that can be accessed from pretty much anywhere, including your cell phone, laptops, which makes it highly flexible to small businesses out there that want to stay connected. With that said, if you're transitioning over from a desktop to the online system, do be very clear that there are some limitations that take place once you are switching over to QuickBooks Online. This can become a little frustrating for people who have worked with the desktop, as the desktop does tend to have a more robust reporting system behind it. Not to say that QuickBooks Online does not have a good reporting system, it's just not as customizable as the QuickBooks desktop is. I like to point this out because a lot of companies use QuickBooks desktops for reporting to do things like forecast cash flow and receivables. Again, not that QuickBooks Online cannot do it, but it is more limited and not as customizable. With that said, let's jump into the introduction to QuickBooks Online. Who am I? Well, like I said, I'm the Director of Finance and Operations here at Cal Poly CIE. I have been a QuickBooks user for about probably closer to 28 years. I've been certified on both desktop as an online pro advisor and as a QuickBooks user as well. I have 25 years of accounting experience working with QuickBooks in multiple areas. I had many training sessions with many consultants over the last 5 years to bring them up to speed on some of the key areas within QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. I specialize in training, integration, and configuration. The first story I'd like to start with when it comes to QuickBooks is just to give people an idea of the overall breadth and scope of what QuickBooks can do for a company. One of the perceptions that's out there that's associated with both QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online is that it is a limited financial reporting platform, and in many ways is limited to what you put into the system. And what I really mean by that is that one of the things that you encounter when you work with QuickBooks is that the time and effort that you put into setting up your system correctly will be greatly rewarded down the line. Take the time to ensure that you're entering everything that is asked for you and that all the information that you are either putting into the system or migrating over from QuickBooks Desktop is accurate. One of the things that you'll hear me talk about a lot during this session is that it's garbage in and garbage out with QuickBooks. It can only provide you the information that you have already provided to it. With that said, it's a fantastic system to work in and stay on top of your finances, things like cash flow, receivables, and payables. With that said, let's move on to our next slide. A couple of housekeepings. Olivia went over these really briefly, just in regards to asking questions and raising your hand. I will make stops along the way to see if there are any questions or concerns. The one request that I do have is if you have a specific accounting or financial question relating to either your company or a specific line item, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole and lose other individuals on this particular call in regards to that. One of the reasons that I've scheduled this to 4 o'clock is that I normally have this wrapped up by about 3, but I like to leave about an hour for Q&A or possibly one-on-one sessions. Also note that once we've completed this, if you would like to schedule an appointment with an SBDC consultant that specializes in QuickBooks, it's either myself or someone else that works for the SBDC, we will be able to do that and sit down with you and have a one-on-one session to take a closer look at your business. I highly recommend this if you are setting up QuickBooks for the first time or are transitioning from another ERP system and don't feel comfortable doing it by yourself. Again, we are a resource here. Please utilize us. We are here to help you and your business grow. So a quick introduction to QuickBooks Online. And I would like to point out at this point in time that everything you will see today, I will be sending out in a follow-up email so that you don't have to take notes or pictures or capture any of this, though it is being recorded for a later session if anybody wants to go back and take a look. I also have a manual that I've generated or created in working with Intuit at the end of this that I will also send out to everyone that will literally give you a step-by-step guide in regards to setting up QuickBooks Online. With these two documents in hand, you should have the resources on hand to be able to set up your QuickBooks and get your business running on QuickBooks Online in no time. Again, we are here to help if you need us. Quick introduction to QuickBooks Online. An introduction to Intuit makers of QuickBooks, an overview of the functionality of QuickBooks Online. We're going to understand the time-saving features today of QuickBooks. I'm going to show the functionality of what your clients will really enjoy about QuickBooks, the ability to pay in a quicker manner and pay online. I will also introduce the resources for accountants online, which is a great resource for QuickBooks Online users. I also take the next step of showing you how to do the signpost for the accountant's portal, converting clients over, and accessing training and the world apps, which is another great feature of QuickBooks Online. Who are Intuit? Well, I'm sure most of you know who they are, but I always like to give a brief overview. They're a global company with a startup mentality, which is ideal for small businesses looking to start up and have a great resource to clearly understand their financial positioning. They have currently over 1.8 online subscribers worldwide, plus a massive installed database that already had been there from the desktop. Their revenue exceeds $4 billion on an annual basis. The US-based global reach of local investment. So companies that, small businesses and small companies in a local environment are key to what Intuit are looking for with QuickBooks Online. They have a world-class support system and a wonderful forum for any questions that you may have moving down the line. I will tell you personally that I encountered many different questions along the way when dealing with both QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. And one of the greatest resources out there are the QuickBooks forums, where you can go and post any question that you might have and find a ton of resources and answers to those questions. I will tell you that it is a key aspect of what makes QuickBooks Online a vital resource to small businesses out there today in this working environment. Now, QuickBooks Online has seen a significant growth over the last couple of years because of the need to stay connected and stay on top of your company's financials, excuse me. And QuickBooks just passed through 100,000 clients that they now have on QuickBooks Online. So some pretty good numbers there to back up what Intuit is looking to do. What is QuickBooks Online? So it's a software solution for business. Online is the only way to move forward. Lets them focus on their business, not their books. It's real-time information to run your business on the go, get paid faster, cardless, and has cardless and PayPal integration. So again, the ability to send an invoice to your customer and have them pay that invoice directly back to you. No checks, no emails, everything is done online. The system automatically receives the funds and does the deposit, while all you have to do is go in and confirm receipt. These are key to streamlining the operations of your business as you move forward, while staying on top of things like cash flow, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. Free US phone support is one of the key aspects of what makes QuickBooks Online very successful in the US. Also, the ability to share accounting files with accountants out there so that you can get the answers you need back from your financial advisors, whether you're working with CPAs or accountants. Save time and increase productivity. These are the key aspects of what QuickBooks Online is built for. Why is cloud good? We've all heard about cloud, and it's in our world every day that we live in these days. So now taking a ERP system and integrating it with a cloud system was only the natural next step in regards to taking QuickBooks Online. Information is always up to date. This is something that is great about QuickBooks Online and something that's kind of unique to it, because in QuickBooks Desktop, that was not always the case. Now you have a system that any one of your employees can access, including your accountants, to see exactly what is taking place at any one time, with the flexibility to customize it towards those needs, from both a viewability and an editability in there, so that you can restrict the access to certain individuals that you want to see certain information and others that need to see that information. Collaboration, a big part of what makes a company successful these days. Anytime, any place, anywhere, for you, your team, and your clients. This is the motto of what QuickBooks Online is all about. No more borders, barriers to when you do business. Key aspects of what makes a successful, flourishing business these days. Software updates are supplied as a standard and are run in the background automatically. Nothing you need to worry about anymore on clicking on the update panel and updating my system, please. All takes place in the background with seamless integration. Just some key aspects of what makes QuickBooks Online unique to desktop. I don't know if any of you are desktop users, but having been a desktop user for 20 years plus before I migrated to QuickBooks Online, the big fear whenever we saw an update come out was we wanted to do a master backup on our file, push the updates through, and hope that nothing went out of whack. Now, if you have been an older user in desktop, that was not always the case. This is something that has been mitigated by utilizing QuickBooks Online. These issues no longer are concerned for both the employees and the payees at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, the key aspects would be that you save time and increase productivity, which is the key aspect these days of a successful business. Let's talk about security. It's a question that comes up, and I'd like to touch on it really quick at the beginning. Let's talk about security you can trust. Intuit cares about security. These days, it doesn't seem like at any time we can't turn on the news or read something online about someone being hacked, about confidential and private information, including things like social security numbers, date of births that are being hacked or stolen. This is why Intuit takes such a serious view towards security. Professional staff, automated tools, physical security, surveillance and alarms to monitor performance from a 24/7 basis to prevent high-tech breaches. Your data is secure in our hands. Okay, let's talk about what that really means. QuickBooks Online is a VeriSign secured product and uses the same 128-bit SSL encryption technology used by the world's top banks. So they're using the same level of encryption that you use when you sign onto your Wells Fargo account or your Bank of America account or any other local bank or regional bank that you might use, which is the highest level of encryption that's currently out there. So at the end of the day, your information is safe, and that is important for you to know. We value privacy as much as you do. So privacy is a big part of what makes the security around these ERPs very important. You want to ensure that both that information is available to you, but not accessible by anybody else. Privacy is built into everything we do at Intuit. Is a license of trustee privacy program, an independent nonprofit organization committed to the use of fair information practices. This ensures that your information is not sold or relayed to any other businesses out there, an important aspect of doing business these days. Most importantly, and it's available to you whenever you might need it. Now, this is a key aspect of QuickBooks Online that's different from the desktop. You can pick up your phone, log on to QuickBooks Online, see if a customer has paid you, see if an invoice has been paid, and exactly where and what is taking place on your business at just a view on your phone. Something that has been very unique to the world these days as we go to the online system. QuickBooks Online has been available for more than 99.8% of the time for the past 3 years. This means that you can access your data online no matter where you are or what you're doing. Very different from the world that I grew up in, where you had to sit down at a desktop, sign into your computer, sign into your QuickBooks, and ensure that the server was up and running and that everyone had synced to it and you had the most up-to-date information on hand. No, that is no longer an issue when it comes to integration and with QuickBooks Online. So let's talk about QuickBooks Online Accountant, because it is a key aspect of what makes QuickBooks Online so great. The ability to communicate with your accountant and share the folder without having to send physical documents out is a great resource and increases the security around that information that you are trying to keep secure for both your business and your clients. What is QuickBooks Online Accountant? So QuickBooks Online Accountant is a powerful dashboard giving real-time reporting and management information for all of your clients in the same place. Pro Advisor portal for training and marketing certification. So again, there are a number of resources out there that are available online for training aspects relating to both the desktop and the online one. I would highly recommend that if you're new to QuickBooks Online, taking the time to view these short videos, which will help you answer some of the questions you might have in regards to getting your QuickBooks Online set up. Now, these are broken down into different sections from beginners to intermediate to advanced. Take your time and get comfortable with some of these sessions and the trainings. You can even go out and get certifications yourself to train your staff and your employees in this regard. Always realize that these resources are constantly being updated in regards to training sessions that you might be looking in specific areas. As an example, you might be looking to train your AP, your accounts payable department. Sorry for the acronyms. I live in the acronym world, so I sometimes have to catch myself with the acronyms I'm speaking. So your accounts payable might want to be trained on how to receive a payment now that they're not physically getting a check, and that how do I process that credit card payment that is coming in. There are a number of great resources at the Intuit website that will walk you step by step through these training sessions to get both yourself and your employees up to speed on what it will take to run QuickBooks Online. A way to manage your business, free your books. So imagine that you have access to this basic library of information on how to not only set up QuickBooks, but to run your business. One of the things that you will find is that as you grow your business with QuickBooks Online, you will start to ask more and more questions in regards to how am I running my business? How should I be running my business? And Intuit provides you these resources step by step to grow your business and answer these questions one by one. Again, the SBDC is also here as a resource for you to sit down with a consultant and go over some of these items if you still feel you're not getting the answers you need. Key to this all is the business opportunity and the wholesale billing. So the ability to do large billings and invoices to clients or multiple invoices and billings to clients is another aspect that's built into QuickBooks Online. I won't go too deep into this particular session, but I do spend quite a bit of time on it at the intermediate session. So again, keep an eye out for that, and if you are interested, please sign up. The other aspect about QuickBooks Online that makes it unique compared to the desktop is the ability for apps to be integrated directly into QuickBooks Online that you can utilize. Now, there are a number of apps out there. I spend a little bit of time talking about them later on. This makes it very unique to QuickBooks Online. While QuickBooks Desktop does have the ability to add on, they are not nearly as integrated as what the online systems have. Once again, with that said, you will always find that the QuickBooks Online does have limitations in regards to if you have ever worked on QuickBooks desktops. Some users do get some frustration transitioning over, and I always like to point this out when I'm having this discussion. And I will bring it up more than once here when I'm talking about specific sections within QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. I like to clearly differentiate between the two. One of the reasons for this is I have seen clients that have migrated over and not been as comfortable with utilizing QuickBooks Online because of their working experience with QuickBooks desktops. Please keep that in mind as you proceed through either choosing QuickBooks desktops or QuickBooks Online. One of my recommendations in this regard is to clearly understand what you will be using QuickBooks for before you decide which version you're going to use. With that said, we're here as a resource to help you make that decision should you need it. Going mobile, probably the biggest aspect of change with the QuickBooks Online is the going mobile. The ability to have access to QuickBooks on both your iPhone and Android and your tablet is key. I can't tell you the number of businesses that utilize this. I can have a client sitting in my office that I'm training, and she's literally at the same time generating an invoice for a client and sending it out. This flexibility and robust in the system is key to what makes QuickBooks Online the great functional ERP that it is. It is top rated. Its great functionality include banking feeds, which means you can directly link your banking accounts to your QuickBooks Online. You can see when deposits are made. You can see when checks are cashed. It enables you to reconcile your books almost on a daily basis if you chose to. It also gives you a clear understanding of where your cash position is, which is vital for small businesses these days. One of the biggest hurdles that small businesses and startups have to get over is their cash flow position. The relationship between your accounts payable and your accounts receivable is key to the success of your business moving forward. Knowing how much money is coming in the door and how much money is going out the door is going to be key to growing your business and being successful at it. And QuickBooks Online excels at this. Keep that in mind when you decide to choose the product that you want to work with. Again, working with QuickBooks Online has these key aspects that make the flexibility vital for a small business, but it is limited in some areas, and I always like to point that out. Accountants. So from my side of the world, if you're working within QuickBooks Online, it is very easy to switch between clients. I might have multiple QuickBooks Online clients that I'm working for, and I can easily transition between one or the other while either talking to them or working on some form of custom reporting for them. For accountants, this is really helpful, as it is very easy then to work with multiple clients at one time. I do like to point this out to accountants because if you've ever worked in QuickBooks Desktop, it's a little different. You have to close out the file, close the program, reopen, pull up the new financials, and is not always the easiest system to utilize. If anyone has ever worked with QuickBooks Desktop in this regard, they'll understand what I'm talking about. So what do we mean by ecosystem and apps? Again, as I stated before, this is a sector that is quite unique to QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online will never do everything. It understands that, again, one of my statements that I made at the very beginning of this particular presentation is that it is garbage in and garbage out when it comes to QuickBooks. QuickBooks can only be as accurate or report for you only as accurately as the information that you provide. One of the reasons that I love the integration of QuickBooks is it limits the human error input that is involved in QuickBooks. So on average, for every 1,000 transactions that are entered into QuickBooks, there's roughly about a 3% error rate that exists in there. This is a human error rate that is accountable to, in most systems out there, this could be anything from a fat finger situation where you're just simply misinputting a digit or a zero to entering a client's name incorrectly to possibly billing the wrong customer. These things are all limited and mitigated in many ways by the QuickBooks Online system because of this integration and because of the platform setup. Again, having a system like this that is set up correctly and taking the time and the diligence to ensure that when you're setting it up and or migrating over from another system, that all the information that is coming over is correct and is accurate. One of the key items that I find when customers are transitioning over to QuickBooks Online is I tell them to take the time to ensure that they're cleaning out their GL and that all the relevant information is accurate in there. This relates everything from accruals to receivables to payable. This is your opportunity to really clean things up, especially if you've worked on QuickBooks Desktop for a long period of time. We all know it, as you build out QuickBooks, it can expand out sometimes and sometimes create specific issues that you don't necessarily address at that point in time, but need to be resolved before you move to QuickBooks Online. Let's talk about extending the capabilities of the QuickBooks Online system. So QuickBooks owns a mobile app that enables you basically, like I said before, to log on and see exactly where your business is at from both an hourly and a daily perspective, whether a client has paid an invoice, made a deposit, or whether one of your employees has sent out an invoice and it's been paid within minutes. These are some of the key areas that makes QuickBooks Online the platform that it is today for small businesses. Apps save time and increase productivity, a key aspect of a business this day. We want you to focus on making your making your company successful, not having to hover over your books to ensure that you have a clear understanding of what's taking place with your business. This is where QuickBooks Online excels for the small business and the startups out there. I do like to stop here and point out something, because one of the things that I come across a lot of the time with both QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online is the scalability of QuickBooks itself. There's a perception out there that QuickBooks is not as scalable as some of the larger ERPs out there. And while this might be true at the very high end of things, companies that have in excess of, say, 2,500 employees, In my 25 years of working with QuickBooks, I personally have run a $200 million budget with over 1,500 employees in 33 states when I was working for REC Solar here locally. So just to give you an idea of the scope and breadth of what QuickBooks can do, we were able to utilize this system for 3 years to run close to a $200 million budget. So any small and local businesses out here should not have any issues with the scalability associated with both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. Again, keeping in mind the limitations that I talked about a little earlier. Again, QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop in particular will be able to meet your needs as long as you're providing the relative information that it needs to get it set up correctly, and then you are ensuring that you're reconciling your books on a monthly basis to make sure that you are accurately tracking your financials. Again, QuickBooks Online makes this very easy for you to do, and it's a lot easier than most people think once they start up. Once you start integrating these systems and processes into your daily, weekly, and monthly, you'll find that the productivity and the accuracy of the work that both your employees are doing and the interaction with their clients improves drastically. This is one of the aspects of QuickBooks Online that's vital to a company's success. Before I go much further, I'm just going to give an app shout out to the apps that are out there. There are a number of them, and I actually spend a little bit more time during the intermediate one going into some of these programs that are out there. I will just touch on one right now that I personally am a huge fan of, and that is called Transaction Pro, which is the third one that you see on the screen. One of the things that I do encounter at times is that I come across customers that are looking to import data into QuickBooks. And at times, though QuickBooks does have the ability to import data, it can be a tricky process to do. One of the great apps that are out there to help you with this is a program called Transaction Pro. Transaction Pro will enable you to load large batches of information directly into QuickBooks Online, or Desktop for that matter, and then be able to double check and validate that information from prior to the import and post the import by utilizing the GL. Now, you can imagine if you have a large transaction that you run outside of QuickBooks. An example of this might possibly be that you run your payroll outside of QuickBooks. Though QuickBooks does have a payroll add-on that you can run payroll through, a lot of companies choose to use third-party companies like Paychex that they like to utilize and run their payroll through. But the problem in these instances is how do I then get that information out of Paychex and into QuickBooks? This is where Transaction Pro and apps like this are able to take that information, validate the balance, push the information into QuickBooks, validate the balance again, and you're off to the races. This limits human interaction, human error, any issues that might be associated with entering, say, 1,000 lines of information into QuickBooks. Again, keep in mind, the ability to limit the human entry point within QuickBooks will mitigate some of the errors that occur naturally. As I said earlier on, for every 1,000 entries, you have about a 3.3% chance of between 3 and 3.3% human error taking place. So limiting that part is key to having the accurate information in your system. Next step. Okay, what happens next now? We've decided we're going to use QuickBooks Online. Step 1, sign up on the accountant portal. Now, if you're setting up QuickBooks Online for the very first time, step 2 won't be as important. But if you're migrating over from another system, possibly, let's say, QuickBooks Desktop or a third party, this is where you're going to want to convert your clients and their data over and identify which clients are ready to move over. Step 3 involves training and getting ready for your customers and your clients to be ready to work with QuickBooks Online and receive it. In the past, if you're used to sending out an invoice via mail, that's no longer the case. You're able to email your invoices direct to your customer, and they're able to pay those invoices instantaneously by clicking on a simple link. Training your team and staff on how to do this will increase their productivity, their effectiveness, and the level of service that you're delivering to your clients. So, how do we go about doing this? Well, we go to www.QuickBooks Online, Accountant, and we start signing up. One thing I would say to you here is understand there are different levels of QuickBooks Online. So again, taking the time to understand what you're looking to use QuickBooks for is key here. Also understand that if you're migrating over from QuickBooks Desktop, you might want to take the time to understand what are those next steps involved in doing this. Moving from QuickBooks Desktop to Online. Again, a really easy process. One of the things that Intuit have strived here to do is to make this transition as easy as possible. The long story short, from a technical aspect, they are basically converting your QBB or QBD file, which is your QuickBooks Desktop file, over to a QBO, QuickBooks Online file. This is a seamless process that QuickBooks has made very easy. You simply log in, upload that QuickBooks Desktop file, and then it migrates the information directly over to your QuickBooks Online. This way, you're able to move all that information over very quickly and very easy without any errors taking place. Again, it's important that you ensure the information that you're moving over is accurate and relevant at this point in time. My suggestion here is if you are migrating from a desktop system and you have old entries in your GLs out there or in AP and AR, this is your opportunity to clean them up. Because again, having a clean system is vital to making sure that you are accurately and correctly tracking both your revenue and your expenses. Again, as I've said before, garbage in, garbage out is the rule when it comes to both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. So, as I stated before, you upload that QB file onto QuickBooks Online. It does the integration for you automatically and basically transfers that information all the way over to QuickBooks Online. You're then able to go in and validate the balances in the system to confirm it back to what your QuickBooks Desktop was, and you are off to the races. The most important aspect of this transition, though, is training. Training yourself and your staff to be successful in QuickBooks Online is key. I talked at the beginning about the number of resources that QuickBooks has available to both its employees and staff to train online. Do take the time to train both yourself and your employees on this. It will make them more productive, more effective, and again, deliver a high level of service to your customers out there, which is key to any successful business growing in this working environment today. With that, well, let's talk about training for success. So QuickBooks Accounting Core Certification is a great resource for QuickBooks out there, the core functionality of QuickBooks accounting solutions. This emphasis on hands-on, it gives you a chance to really explore the practice keys of these functions. So you can test things out and practice entering invoices or receiving payments with your employees and ensure that they feel comfortable both in making these necessary entries and then asking the necessary questions to get them comfortable with the system. Take the time to make sure that both yourself and your employees are comfortable with this, as it's key to the success of utilizing QuickBooks Online. The knowledge base, as with anything that we utilize these days, is really the key to utilizing QuickBooks effectively and in turn running your business effectively. Certification exams leading to certification and getting certified in QuickBooks is a great resource. One of the recommendations that I have is if you have a if you have a staff in the finance department where it's more than 5 people, I always recommend that you have one person that is the experts on QuickBooks Online. This tends to involve having one of them get the online certifications, but once you have that, it is a great resource for your staff and your employees to have that person that is the expert in the office when it comes to QuickBooks Online. These QuickBooks certifications online are very easy to get. They do take some time and there is a bit of a learning curve, but it is key these days for businesses to be successful to have that resource on hand. Once again, though, one of the key aspects of QuickBooks Online is the resources that it does have, from both the 1-800 resource that Intuit has to the online forums where virtually any question that you might have can be answered. It's also important to remember that and I'm going to move on to my next slide here. If it will let me, there we go. There are many helpful guides and supports online through QuickBooks Learn and the Small Business Center. These areas you can go to and ask any question you might have. The answers are right there in front of you because there are many people out there that have the same inquiries you have. And seeing the answers to the question in many ways will solve some of the problems you might have. I always recommend that you check these forums out before you reach out to the 1-800 support. If only for it's faster and tends to be more effective. One of the things that I've encountered in my many years is there's literally not one question that I've ever asked of support that I have not already seen someone ask in some form or manner. So having this vast database of information available to you and available to your employees is key to the success of your business as you integrate QuickBooks Online into your daily operations. I also like to highlight here the world-class support that comes along with QuickBooks Online. The best support is free. These are local companies that, these are local supports that are available to you. I'm not sure why it has UK on here. These are local 800s that are available to you through Intuit to support you in any questions you might have. The key aspect of this is the training portion of it. So even though you have access to this information, it's key that you train your employees on how to utilize QuickBooks Online so they're not having to spend too much time reaching out to the support that is out there. With that said, it's always nice to know that you do have that support out there at this point in time. Skip the next one. I'd like to stop for a moment before we go on to the actual manual process of what it takes to get QuickBooks up and running, to see if anyone has any questions. Okay. Let me share my next. Oh.
It looks like, Damon, we've got a couple questions. Nicholas,
Perfect.
I will allow you to talk. Let's see here. All right, there you are.
Hey, Nicholas.
Hi, thanks for doing this. So my question was, I've been told that if you do the online, if you ever choose to go to another system, that it is a challenge, or if not even impossible, to get your data out of QuickBooks Online. Could you speak on that and whether that's actually true or not?
So Nicholas, I've heard this question before, and I can only speak to my personal experience with regards to this, and I will tell you that that is true. I have many times struggled with customers that have migrated over or out of QuickBooks Online. With that said, I actually came up with a solution myself that handled this issue. The key here is that all your information is stored online, and QuickBooks wants, or Intuit in particular, wants to be able to hold on that information so that you keep coming back to them in regards to the needs that you have to run an ERP. The short end of the story is that the solution that I was able to come back is actually to do a reverse transition to QuickBooks Desktop. So just as much as you can transition from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, you can actually transition backwards from QuickBooks Online to QuickBooks Desktop. This is not the easiest process, which is why they don't put it out there that you can do this. The only way that I found to then pull that information is to transition back to QuickBooks Desktop and then pull the data down directly. The only caveat to that is you can always print all your data out in a reporting fashion. So as an example, you can data dump out of QuickBooks Online into Excel, which gives you the ability to then import that information. But what you're speaking to is actually migrating from QuickBooks Online to another ERP, and that is where most people have struggled, and Intuit does not have a set system. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's exactly what I was wanting to know about. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions out there before I transition real quick? And the more questions, the better, guys.
All right, it looks like Beth has a question as well.
Great. Hi, Beth.
Beth, I've allowed you to talk. It looks like you're muted. If you have a question, you're more than welcome to ask live.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I certainly can.
Sorry. Thank you. I just wasn't clear on where I go to get the tutorials and the online certification.
You know what I will do for you, Beth, is in the email that I send out after this, I will include both links for you so that you will be able to go ahead and click on that. Olivia, if you could just provide me with a list of all the email addresses of all the attendees we have today so I can put that together. I'll include the manual, the slideshow that we have been going through, and then those 2 resources for you. Once you've taken a look at them, Beth, if they don't answer all your questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me and we can see if we can set up a meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Fantastic. It looks like I have 2 questions on the chat. Let me read the first one and see if I can answer it. How does the accountant manage different subscriptions without being able to look at their books? So what happens with QuickBooks Online is that the customer, or yes, the client, let's say, who owns QuickBooks Online is able to share access with an accountant, specifically so that the accountant can get the accountant view of QuickBooks Online. I hope that that answers your question, Denise, in regards to that. If it doesn't, let me know, and I can go into a little bit more detail. Now, this is slightly different from how it was done on the QuickBooks desktop, where you would basically share the QBD file on QuickBooks Desktop with your accountant. She would pull the file over, import it into her desktop. QuickBooks Online, because of its ability to switch between the 2 so quickly, she is able to have multiple clients listed under the QuickBooks accountant and can access them at any point along the way, making it easy to transition between multiple clients. Denise had a follow-up. My clients keep buying subscriptions without inventory capabilities and have retail and online stores, and then ask me how to reconcile the inventory without having to make a manual journal entry because they don't want to pay for the third-party app. Why have I heard this before? Many, many, many times. So, you know, you really need to decide if you want to spend the money on the inventory aspect of QuickBooks Online. If you're running inventory and want to clearly understand what's taking place, it is worth the financial investment to do that. With that said, like you stated in your question, there are a number of different apps out there that will integrate with QuickBooks Online. One of the key aspects in deciding this is the complexity of your inventory system. An example I would give you here is I work with many small businesses out here on many different scales. I may have a young lady in here who's making jam locally in, let's say, Santa Maria. Now, her inventory system is going to be a jar. It's going to be the preserves that she makes, a lid, and a label on the jar. Not the greatest inventory system. And so she's able to just utilize the traditional system within QuickBooks Online, or she might even want to track it herself outside of QuickBooks, which I don't recommend, but a lot of customers like to do. I've also worked with large wineries who have multiple vineyards and processing areas and many vintages in their system, and they need to track it down to the bottle. They need to know how many bottles are coming, how many corks, how many labels, and we're talking thousands upon thousands from an inventory level. In that case, you're going to want to spend the money and invest in that inventory system so that you have a clear understanding of what's taking place. The key aspect of this is to get your customer, the client that is utilizing QuickBooks Online, to see the value in that. Now, there are many apps that will do this for you and will integrate directly into QuickBooks. But the more complex you get with your inventory system, the less effective some of these apps tend to be. So my suggestion in this is that if you have a client that wants to take the time from an inventory perspective to set up and manage their inventory system, that it's worth spending the money to go ahead and get that particular subscription. Please keep that in mind as you're making this decision. Again, getting your customer to clearly understand what they're going to be utilizing it for, and most importantly, from an inventory perspective, getting your customer or client to realize that QuickBooks Online's ability to be scalable is key to this aspect. You might be just starting off as a little mom and pops now and want to understand what your inventory is, but 2-3 years from now, you could have a massive inventory system that you've had to build out. And this is where the subscription services that Intuit provide with their inventory system will handle some of those more complex transactions that are going to take place. any follow-ups in regards to what I just asked? Oh, you can't make it that easy on me, guys. Come on now. Okay.
I think that's it
So-
for questions. Damon, if you want to swap your display settings, that way it's the display is switched
Oh,
here
let
at
me
the
see.
top where it says display settings. There you go. Perfect.
Technical difficulties in my world. Okay, great. Okay. This is the guide I talked about a little earlier on. At the end of this, I will send this out to everyone so you will have it as a reference point. It's really a great resource to really either set yourself up or work with transitioning QuickBooks over from another ERP. I've worked with Intuit and getting this set up and customizing specifically more so to the small business side of the world, which is the world I basically work in and a number of the clients that we deal with here at the SBDC and Cal Poly. So with that said, let's get started. So one of the questions that we talked about right in the beginning of this is really understanding, is QuickBooks Desktop the choice for me, or is QuickBooks Online the choice to me? I really want to take some time to just talk about this for a second, because deciding which system is for you is key to how successful you will be moving forward. There are a number of different packages out there when it relates to both QuickBooks Online and the QuickBooks Desktop portion of it. I will start with what I said at the very beginning. If you know that you're going to utilize your QuickBooks more for a financial forecasting and reporting aspect, I would highly consider that you look more so towards QuickBooks Desktop. One of the reasons I bring this up is that the robust reporting system that is built into the desktop is vastly more configurable than the online version. Now, again, as I stated earlier, you're not limited in the ability to do reporting, but you are limited in the ability to customize and build specific reports. Do keep that in mind when you're deciding which product you want to go to. With that said, if you decide to start with desktop, you always have the ability to migrate to online. Conversely speaking, if you've made it to online and you need to transition back, not always the easiest, you most certainly can. Keep that in mind when you're looking at things like how many people will be utilizing my QuickBooks, how many users will I have on at one time, and how big is my office staff that will be utilizing QuickBooks Online. These are just some of the key questions that you're going to want to ask before you decide which project to pick. Also understand that within QuickBooks Desktop, you have the ability to customize specific project-based programs. So for instance, if you're dealing with a large construction company that has multiple projects, you're probably going to want to look more towards QuickBooks Desktops. Not to say that QuickBooks Online couldn't, but the level of detail and the complexity of the structure that's going to take place, and as you scale out your business, you're probably going to want to look towards the desktop version. Again, spending some time with a consultant to understand which version you really need to look towards will be key to setting up your QuickBooks and getting it running effectively. The benefits of using QuickBooks Online. So I touched on this a little earlier, but I do like to highlight it again as we talk through this particular particular brochure that I've set up for us to all take a look at. So going mobile. So again, I've literally had a client that I've been sitting in here consulting with, whereby she's created a quote for a customer right in front of me, sent it from her phone, and got a response back within minutes. It's these kinds of real-time integration that make QuickBooks Online as flexible as it is. So like I said, create a quote, email an invoice, record an expense, anytime, anywhere, using the internet connection in a browser, a colleague on a different continent, and in a different time zone. Different time zones can work together on the same project. I mean, that's key today in the world that we live in, and leads to the next point, which is real-time collaboration. Collaborate in real time with clients, team members to speed up the rate of work and make smarter and faster decisions. Plus, cloud computing saves time on file sharing. This is a key aspect of what makes QuickBooks Online the successful ERP that is today, and why Intuit has over 100,000 users currently using it. Again, Back in the desktop days, this was not always the case. If one particular individual was utilizing the QBD file, which is the QuickBooks desktop file, it meant that you were limited to a certain amount of users that could log in and write to it. If you've ever worked on the desktop, you know exactly what I mean when you see that multi-user little pop-up show on your screen and that you don't currently have access. Always backed up and secure. I can't tell you the number of horror stories that I've had to work on where I've been working with QuickBooks desktop users where their QuickBooks desktop file has been corrupted and they haven't done a backup in 6 months. And they're literally on the phone in tears with me saying, Damon, I just lost 6 months worth of backup data. Yes, it happens, and it is brutal when it happens. So ensuring that you are backing up and that your information is secure is key to closing your eyes and sleeping well at night when it comes to your business. Perhaps the most significant aspect of Perhaps the most significant aspect of cloud accounting is the assurance that your client's company data is always secure and backed up. Because it's online and tied to a cloud system, it is constantly being backed up, and this is never a worry that you need to have. Reduced capital expenditure. Now, as a small business, one of the key aspects of growing your business is reducing your overall costs so that you can reinvest it in your business and grow it. Improve the quality of service that you're delivering to both your customers and your employees. At the end of the day, these are the two aspects that make a successful small business and ensure that you grow moving forward. Reduced capital expenditure. System upgrades are a thing of the past, and the cloud software is automatically upgraded so your clients are always up to date using the newest version. Again, I talked about this a little earlier. It's a key aspect of what QuickBooks Online is all about. All these updates take place in the background. There's never anything you have to worry about. If anyone has ever worked with QuickBooks in the past, and more specifically QuickBooks Desktop, that was not always the case. So these reassurances are key to you being able to run your business effectively. Improved agility and productivity. Cloud technology will allow your clients to spend more time on their business and less time with administrative and data entry. This in turn improves the quality of service and in turn the quality of products that you are delivering to your customers out there and ensures that they are happy with the services they are receiving. I'm not going to go too far into the case study trainings right now because I want to really jump right into navigating in QuickBooks Online. So one of the things that I love about QuickBooks Online in particular is the snapshot that it gives you when you first sign in. I'm not going to spend too much time on this today because really as we get into the intermediate session, we talk a lot more about customizing the dashboards to meet your needs and really identifying what you want to see when you open the system up. With that said, this is a completely customizable area. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about navigating QuickBooks and what takes place. QuickBooks Online has been designed to be an intuitive, fast sample to use. I'm actually going to show you a little bit of a sample session a little later on just to give you some high-level overviews. The user interface is simple, unified, which results in fewer clicks to find the desired information and function. You can sign into QuickBooks Online from the file, QuickBooks Online into it, navigate the QuickBooks Online homepage, and from there you can log in. Again, the little item number 3 is literally the sign-in session that you will see when you sign into QuickBooks Online. Again, it's as easy as you can possibly imagine once you've set up the account to go ahead and take that transition over. Once you're into the system, you do get the homepage dashboard, which I just talked about really briefly. The great thing about this particular dashboard is it is customizable to anything that you want to see. In particular, in my world that I lived in, I would want to see AP and AR for the next week. I'd like to have the cash forecast showing up on here, and then I might have some other items that I need to deal with. As an example, I might have outstanding invoices that are past 15 days be reflective on this screen. Again, one of the things that I like to stop and talk about real importantly here when it comes to QuickBooks is understanding why you're using QuickBooks and the resources that it has on hand to be able to make your business successful. the key aspect of this, and I am only going to talk about this briefly because I spent a lot more time in the advanced and intermediate class, is understanding the relationship between AR, accounts receivable, and accounts payable. This is the key aspect of managing your cash flow for your business to be able to both grow your business and invest in your business as you move forward. The home page displays a summary of key information. A new file setup will display as below with no transactions. Again, this is customizable and gives you the ability to really customize what you want to see in here. Company settings are set in the top right-hand corner of your QuickBooks Online screen, accessed by clicking on the gear icon. We will cover this in the company file setup. To access your help function, click on the question mark icon next to the company menu in the top right-hand corner. This is covered in the final chapter of Help and Support. Again, I'd just like to reiterate that I will be sending this document out to everybody. At the end of this, you don't need to take any notes or any snapshots of anything I'm talking about, as you will have this on hand. One of the things that I also like to iterate is a lot of people ask me why I am using the Australian version. If you notice at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it actually says Australia Limited. It's because I pulled my resources for all of these from all over the place, and I just love the slide deck that had been set up when I was working with Intuit on this. So again, I have made this particular deck up as I have worked with them over the past. Moving forward, we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty of QuickBooks Online now, okay? So the first thing you're going to notice is the Create button in the top right-hand corner of your screen that gives you access to create new transactions and other records. Let me stop right here and ask, do we have any questions before I start really diving into QuickBooks Online and how we use it, how we set it up, and how it works for us? No. Great. Okay, let's talk about search. Use this feature to quickly look up QuickBooks Online transactions. This can be done by numbers, date, or even a dollar amount. The advanced search feature provides additional filters and options. This is really great if you have hundreds of invoices out there and you just cannot remember what that particular client's name was, but you certainly know the dollar amount you're trying to collect on. You can find information by any one of these data points, whether it be an invoice number, a reference number, a dollar amount, a date, or even amount. Recent transactions. Use this feature to display a list of recently recorded transactions, each of which can be opened by clicking on the search box. Another great feature. Show less. We see too much, we can always show less. The Create window also has a simplified view accessed by the Show Less options. Sometimes you don't want to show as much information as it might be a little bit overwhelming, and you really want to just focus it down to the information that you need to see. Please keep in mind that one of the main abilities of QuickBooks Online is its ability to be customizable to your needs. So I really want to stop and talk for a second about the process of setting QuickBooks up. And we're going to touch on this a little later, but one of the key mistakes that I initially see with QuickBooks Online, and this does not involve transitioning from QuickBooks Desktop. This is a standalone user that's either used spreadsheets or some other ERP to track their financial systems or track their finances in the past, When they proceed to set up QuickBooks for the first time, one of the key mistakes that I see is when setting up the chart of accounts, they build out this massive chart of accounts, really envisioning that they want to capture every possible scenario that they may encounter when dealing with a client. Let me just ask you to hold on for a second. One of the mistakes that is made here is that we build that chart of accounts out way too far and make things way too complex. One of my recommendations to companies that are starting with QuickBooks Online is keep it really simple and focused on what your needs are. If you want to track a specific expense, you can build a specific chart of account out to do that. Here's a great example of what of somebody that I've encountered that had built out this massive chart of accounts and then realized later down the line that they didn't. And the great example that I like to use is travel. So I had a client who worked in California, but had multiple sales that will work in other states. Not every state, But one of the things he proceeded to do is to, in his chart of account, is build out a expense category for every state in the U.S., right? Now, even though he only had, salespeople in 13, he decided, no, I was going to go out and build this all out. Well, it extended his chart of accounts out to this massive chart of accounts that he didn't need to have. Now, initially it wasn't a problem, but as he started building out the chart of accounts, it became more and more complex for him and became more and more of a headache. Stay focused, stay narrow, and focus on what your needs are. One of the opportunities that you have when you transition from desktop is to really consolidate your chart of accounts. We've all encountered it where we create a specific entry within our chart of accounts to track a specific expense or a specific item that may be. And what happens is that the chart of accounts tends to grow. This is a great opportunity for you to scrub your chart of accounts and make it clearly identify what you are using them for and keep them very focused. Again, simple works. You can always add, but it is a lot harder to remove items from your chart of accounts once you've established or posted expenses to them. Please keep this in mind as you build your chart of accounts out. Again, if you ever need help in regards to this, the SBDC consultants are available to help you with these particular items. I do tend to come across a lot of businesses that are utilizing QuickBooks Online for the very first time, do struggle sometimes with building out the chart of accounts. Again, do keep that in mind as we move forward. Talking about clicking on the hamburger item will collapse all the left menus, which is handy if you need some more screen time or real estate on your screen. Just a really nice little simple feature that will compress everything on your screen so that you can more clearly see the dashboard and any other relevant information that you might have. The rest of the dashboard can display things like your bank account, having your bank accounts linked up to your QuickBooks Online and showing what the available balance is. Will show right there on the dashboard. Activity, things like invoices going out and payments being received can be put on there. Panels, which will give you an overview of your business metrics. So you might want a 3-month view of what your accounts receivable looks like over the next few months. These are some of the customizations that can be done on the dashboard. Privacy. In a public location, the privacy option can be turned on to hide the financial information. Again, Intuit has gone to great lengths to ensure that the security and the privacy of the information that you're working with is key. I can't tell you how valuable that is in the day and the world that we live in when, again, as I said earlier, you can't turn on a news or read an article about someone telling you about some system being hacked. The company file setup. Okay, so this is really where it all starts for your business when you set up your QuickBooks Online. This company file will be the master file that all the information is stored and written to and as you proceed. This is the single key aspect of your business within the QuickBooks Online world. Many options for customizing the QuickBooks Online can be accessed by clicking on the gear icon at the top right-hand corner. You can customize the options regarding how QuickBooks Online operate based on the best fit for your business. Again, the ability to customize it towards your needs is key, and the flexibility in changing that is one of the unique aspects of QuickBooks Online. Company settings. To access this area, click on the gear icon within settings and company settings. You will also find many other tools and customizations options from the gear icon. So again, this is really where it starts from your business from a setup perspective. Take the time to really go through this and ensure the information is accurate that you're putting in the system. As I think I've said before, QuickBooks is all about good information in and good information out, which leads to garbage information in and garbage information out. So let's talk about really getting started. And I don't want to go too much into the tax center situation because we do spend some more time on the intimate process of doing this. So I'm actually going to skip this side altogether because I don't want to create any confusion. One of the things I do spend more time on in the intermediate process is how to do things like tax accruals, tax payments, tax reporting. And I also, in my advanced class, do year-end financial tax reporting. If you do have an interest in this, again, don't hesitate to sign up for those classes when you do see them come out. So let's just, we can talk briefly about the tax center and how it's set up in regards to your company. You do want to ensure that how the structure of your company is set up is entered into QuickBooks correctly. Are you an LLC? Are you a corporation? How does that relate? Do you have a tax ID number? Are you running it under sole prop? Remember, this is all key information that QuickBooks is going to be asking you for. So ensure that you have that information on hand and it is accurate when you go ahead and set up this particular company file. Accounts. Okay, so one of the key parts that we talked about a couple of minutes ago was the setup of the chart of accounts. This is where we start to take a little bit more of a closer look. I'm already going to tell you that this is a lot of where the questions that I get coming back at me in regards to the setup process. If you don't have any financial experience in the past in dealing with QuickBooks, this can be a little difficult. Again, there are a number of resources at hand to be able to help you set up the chart of accounts. In fact, QuickBooks will generate for you a generic chart of accounts if you do not have a chart of accounts established. This enables you to get your business up and running and get the relevant information into the system quickly and accurately. Again, keep your view narrow, understand what you are utilizing it for and what you want your chart of accounts to reflect. To track the transactions and the balances for all key reports like balance sheets, profit and loss, QuickBooks Online uses a list accounts or chart of accounts. The setup process will create a generic chart of accounts which can be customized. So I always recommend, unless you have a specific chart of accounts already established that you know you want to use within QuickBooks, it's always advisable to use the generic one to at least get comfortable with using the chart of accounts and getting your business set up and running. Manually add an account. Locate the chart of account, select the gear icon, your company, chart of accounts. Select the new top right-hand corner. This opens up a new screen where the account can be figured. This is your opportunity to basically label and structure it in any way that you choose to. So let's talk about those. They're broken out into a number of different areas. There's category type, which specifies the. There's detail type. It provides more detail on the category type selected. It is a compulsory field, meaning you have to input something. It's a compulsory field, although it does not affect any financial reporting. Select the detail type closest to the account being set up. Name. This is the name of the account being set up. It's what is seen within the chart of accounts list when you go in and look at it. Number. An optional account number. So if you choose to use a set series within it, you're going your 100,000 through your 999s, that's absolutely fine. Again, keep it narrow in what you're looking to use it for. Be specific in your chart of accounts and really use those. So as an example, you might want to use your 600,000 lines as your income accounts. You might want to use your 800,000 lines as your income lines. Again, having a clear understanding of what these are and how they are structured are key in the process of setting it up. Description. This allows greater detail on the name to be added and is optional. You can also have a sub-account. In the sub-account, place a tick in the sub-account selection field to make the account being set up a sub-account for another account. This enables you to both have a chart of accounts that then tags to a specific sub-account that you might have set up. Not going to go too much detail sub-accounts. I will touch on it a little later on. Please understand that these relate specifically to how you are setting up your business and how you want to operate it. I also spend a little bit of time talking about class and category coding, though we do spend more time talking about that on the desktop side, as I tend to find that clients use class coding specifically more on the desktop version than I have come across on the online version. With that said, if you do use class coding, it is something we can certainly talk about in the intermediate class. Taxable payments and annual reports. So one of the key aspects of what QuickBooks Online does very well is the ability to both accrue from a tax liability standpoint. One of the reasons this is key and is different from the QuickBooks desktop is it does this automatically. One of the things that people always struggled with QuickBooks Online that QuickBooks Desktop has done a great job in doing is that before all of your tax liabilities had to be set up separately in QuickBooks Online, you needed to know what the taxable rate was both from a city, county, and state level. QuickBooks does this automatically based on the zip code that you are billing from and billing to. So in the past, in the old world of the desktop world, I would have, let's say, all the counties in California set up within my system for all the clients that I'm dealing with, so that when I generated an invoice, QuickBooks was able to accrue for the tax liability that I would then have to pay out to the BOE at the end of the month, or on a quarterly basis, depending on what your schedule is. This would involve me being constantly ensuring that I would have to go back to the BOE website and make sure that my tax rates that were input in the system were up to date. Unfortunately, the BOE and the IRS do not accept ignorance as an excuse when it comes to these items. I don't know if any of you have ever signed up for the BOE alerts in regards to county and city. They quite honestly update them almost on a weekly basis relating to cities and counties. There might be something specific out there that causes the tax rate to go up or go down. Again, I would have to go out there almost on a quarterly basis and ensure that all these counties were set up with the correct rate so that I was accruing correctly. Again, the IRS and the BOE do not accept ignorance as an excuse for doing this. Well, how does QuickBooks Online does this? Well, it utilizes the zip code of where you are shipping or sending the invoice from and where you are billing to ensure that they are tracking the correct accrual and, more importantly, collecting the correct tax rate for your customer. This makes it a seamless system where at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, you are doing your tax reporting. Again, QuickBooks is never going to replace a CPA or accounting from that perspective, but it will enable you to accrue for your tax liability accurately, and in turn be able for you to go ahead and file those returns yourself if you feel comfortable. These are some of the key areas that QuickBooks Online excels in. Again, I don't want to get too much into the tax reporting in this regard, as we do spend quite a bit of time in it when we get into the intermediate and the advanced courses. Managing users. Well, this is a great aspect of QuickBooks Online. I love to use the example of the multi-users on the desktop. Many times back in the day when you were using QuickBooks Desktop, you would sign up for 3 multi-users, which basically meant that at any one time there could never be more than 3 people logged into your system. The different aspect about QuickBooks Online is you're able to sign up by the number of users you actually want to use and have access to QuickBooks. So, as an example, the number of business users are allowed varies by QuickBooks Online subscription. So if you're a one-person mom and pop shop, you're going to be looking to start up at the simple start. One user has access to QuickBooks Online. You're going to be the only one that goes in. You handle all the financial transactions that take place, including receiving payments and billing out to your customers. This is the simplest version of QuickBooks that is available out there currently. The Essential users gives access to up to 3 users out there, and the Plus gives you access to 5. Now, these do expand outwards, and there are additional users that are able to utilize QuickBooks Online, but I do like to point out that really you want to make sure that you're picking the product that best supports your business. Also realize that you can always increase your subscription. You can always expand out, increase the number of users that have access to QuickBooks Online. With that said, I always like to point out at this point in time that you really want to keep the circle that are utilizing your QuickBooks Online from an employee perspective to a narrow circle. Keep it to those users that really need to be in the system and either entering expenses or receiving payments and tracking your financials. It does not serve your company well to give access to QuickBooks to everyone out there if they're not going to utilize it. You're also paying for a service that you're not utilizing, which is not smart at the end of the day. So, you can also invite 2 accounting or big bookkeeper professionals. These invitations are not included in the business user allowance and are available for all subscription plans. So this is something that I talked about a little earlier on, where you can then have your accountant have a live copy of the version that you have. So you may have a scheduled phone call with your accountant each month to take a look at your financial books. It's simply a matter of you pulling up your QuickBooks Online and your accountant logging onto their version of yours. The real-time data is available to them right in front of you, and what you see on your screen is exactly what your accountant sees on theirs. This enables you to ask specific questions that you might have relating to your particular business and or specific transactions that have taken place. This is a key aspect of QuickBooks Online and makes the integration process that much more effective. To manage users, select the gear icon, your company, and manage users. There are two sections to managing users. Managing users, which allows you to create, modification, or a deletion of business users in the QuickBooks Online field. Accountants firm, which allows accountants and bookkeepers to be invited and or removed from the file. So the two different aspects here is one is an employee user aspect, and the other aspect of that is the communication with your CPA/accountant. Again, Intuit has gone to great lengths to integrate this as effectively as possible so that you're seeing real-time information at any time of the day that you log onto this particular portal. So I'm not going to spend too much time going into the user roles. One of the things that I would advise to people out there that are going to set it up for the very first time, I don't encounter this when I've had customers that are transitioning from the desktop, is really take the time to decide what kind of user you're gaining access to in regards to your employees. One of the things that you really want to have access clearly defined to your employees is if you have a particular individual that's solely working in accounts payable, then really that is their world. They do not need access to anything outside of that world other than being able to process payments and or issue payments out to vendors out there. So if you have a multi-department within your finance department, you have accounts receivable, you have an accounts payable, you can designate specific roles for specific individual. This has the benefit of eliminating the human error and also the tendency for certain individuals to want to take a look at things that maybe they should not be taking a look at. This is a way for you to protect both yourself, your customer, and your employee. So really understanding the roles that they will play within your QuickBooks Online world is key. Understand that you have the administrative side of things that will always have full access, but you can always dig down a little further to the account user side of the world where you can really be specific about access to specific items in QuickBooks and what they have access to as well. I do want to stop here because I tend to get a few questions when it relates to setting up the users within QuickBooks, and I just want to make sure that everyone is comfortable with this aspect. Great. Moving on. So, a regular or custom user can have access to all features, or access can be limited by customer, sales, supplies, and purchases. I'm not going to spend too much time going into this based on what I just said before, but again, this gives you the ability to really customize the rights and access that these particular individuals have in regards to your company file and the information that they see. This is key from both a privacy standpoint and a security standpoint. Will QuickBooks automatically, excuse me for 1 second, it looks like we have a question from Denise. Will QuickBooks automatically give you a chart of accounts for an S corporation if that's the type of entity you have? It won't give you a chart of accounts for a specific corporation. It will give you a generic chart of accounts that you can then build out for your corporation. You know, one of my recommendations here is to utilize the form resource. So if you have in your case, an S corporation where you want a generic S corporation chart of accounts, you can certainly go into the form, and there are a number of chart of accounts that have already been set up by individuals that have an S corporation and have built that. With that said, you really want to customize it to your needs. If you've never had a chart of accounts before, take the time to really identify what you want your chart of accounts to look like. Remember, these chart of accounts aren't specific per se to the company structure, C Corp, S Corp, LLC. But in turn, they're more specific to the need that you have to track your expenses coming in and your revenue. Okay, so really understanding what you're trying to track is the key part to establishing your chart of accounts. I always recommend that if you don't have any experience, that you do start with the generic, because really it's going to cover all the bases. And what will start to happen is you will start to build outwards when you don't find a specific chart of accounts or a specific item that you are looking for. Again, one of the questions is you always want to ask is, am I just creating a specific item within my chart of accounts to deal with an issue, or is this something that I will be utilizing moving forward? The way you can look at this is this something that I'm going to want to generate a report on and want to be able to have a more detailed look at? Having that understanding of really what you're trying to answer is the key aspect in setting up correct chart of account. With that said, if this is the first time you're doing this, take the time to do your homework, take the time to do your due diligence, and most importantly, if you're still not comfortable, reach out to meet with a consultant so that you can spend some time. That little bit of time and effort will save you volumes of time later on, because it will make you the ability to scale your chart of accounts as your business moves forward. Denise, did I hopefully answer your question? I might need to set up an appointment with Denise, because she has wonderful questions.
I think after Denise, that is it for questions right now. So we can go ahead and move forward. Thanks, Damon.
Thank you. Okay, I'm actually gonna bypass the setup stage now. I don't want to get into too much of this. I will talk briefly about the screen, but we're not going to spend too many times, because I literally have only ever come across one customer that used multiple currency. Yes, QuickBooks does have the ability to use multiple currency. Please do not ask me to explain it right now, because I will put you all to sleep. Long story short, you can bill a customer in euros if necessary and get paid in dollars, and vice versa. One of the key aspects of this that I want to point out that you may not realize is a lot of time when I have encountered multiple currencies, you need to be very, very careful about the exchange rate. When your customer pays you in a different currency, it has a direct reflect on how much you will receive on this end. Okay, so again, I'm not going to spend time. If this is something that your company does deal with, then you most certainly want to set up an appointment, and I will spend some more time going over this in greater detail. It's just something that I have not encountered that much at this time. Areas where I have encountered is, with example, would be wineries that are exporting wine out of the USA to both Europe, Australia, North and South America, etc. Those are the only instances that I personally have encountered using the multi-currency. And yes, I have encountered issues there, but I will tell you that QuickBooks does a great job with this. Importing data. So this is something that we talked about a little earlier on, and I had pointed out some apps that do a great job. I also want to point out that QuickBooks itself actually does a really good job with important information. But the key aspect of this is the information that is being brought in is accurate and relevant. Now, the good part about this is that Intuit and QuickBooks Online are able to view Excel and CSV files. So if you have that information backed up or stored in those files, it's a pretty simple process to then pull that data directly into QuickBooks. This can be great for the initial setup of QuickBooks Online if, like a lot of the people out there, you've been doing all your accounting in a very large spreadsheet. So these are some of the key items that QuickBooks Online provides you to make it a seamless transition over. I've also talked about the ability for QuickBooks Online to export this information out. This is where it gets a little trickier. Though you can pull CSV files in and you can pull in Excel files in, you can't necessarily push them out. This is what the gentleman a little earlier was talking about when he referenced getting my information back out of QuickBooks Online once it's in there. Your only ability at that point is to generate specific reports that would provide you that information. Now, that's a far different from QuickBooks Desktop, which is able to push that information directly out into an Excel file or a CSV file for you. Again, these are things to keep in mind when you're deciding which version you want to use. Customer import. Okay, again, just like what we talked about in the previous screen with the CSV files and the Excel files, from this point of view, you can import large batches of client information directly into QuickBooks, as opposed to having to sit there and manually create and set up every vendor and every client in your system. Now, if you don't have it stored in a set database or an Excel spreadsheet, then it is a good exercise to go through to ensure that all those clients are relevant and are still in your system. Again, just doing a straight data dump is not necessarily always the best way to go about setting up QuickBooks. Take the time to ensure that the information you're putting in there is relevant to what you are looking to get out of it. If you have a client in there that you haven't spoken to or dealt with in the last 5 years, then it's not necessarily in your best interest to bring all those clients and their relevant information over. With that said, if you're using the data for historical reporting, there's a context there where you would want to. Again, making sure that the information you're bringing over is accurate and relevant to what you are looking to achieve. This relates everything from importing your customers, importing your suppliers, chart of accounts, and products and services. Taking the time to make sure that these are set up and correctly entered in QuickBooks will pay you dividends down the line. Again, keeping your focus narrow on what the needs of QuickBooks are right now for your company. You can always expand outward, but it is a lot harder within QuickBooks Online to contract it back down. Keep it narrow and keep the focus on what the needs are for your particular company. Products and services. So another great section, and really it actually ties in a little bit with the inventory control side of things that we touched on a little earlier on. Once you start getting your products and services set up correctly, you can start receiving in, you can start utilizing the inventory control system that is built into QuickBooks if you're signed up for the subscription service that they provide. With that said, take the time to ensure that you are setting these items up correctly within QuickBooks. They are labeled correctly. They follow a specific coding that you're using. Now, whether it's a name or a numbering system, it's key here that you want to spend the time and ensure that these specific items and or services are set up correctly with the correct labeling. Again, if there's one area I would really like you to take the time, it's going to be the chart of accounts and the products and services. I know that you know who your vendors are and who your clients are, and you're going to be able to get all that information, but taking the time for the chart of accounts and the products and services is going to be key. Again, don't throw the whole kit and caboodle in there. Put what is relevant to your business and products and services. Don't build a service out for every possible scenario that you can imagine might happen. Deal with what you know. If you provide 3 services right now to customers and you want to expand out to 5, but you're not doing 5, don't put the 5 in there now. Plan this out so that you can grow your company effectively. One of the things that people get really happy with is building out all the products and services for the next 10 years within their setup. Not necessarily the best case, okay? And again, really keeping that focus narrow to what the needs are for your business. One of the things you are able to do within the products and services, and one of the aspects that I really like and what will help with the inventory side of things, is utilizing the SKU codes. So the only example I'd like to give here, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but if you're buying a specific product from a specific vendor and you have a specific SKU code that you're utilizing for it, unless you have an internal SKU code system that you specifically are using to track your inventory internally, I would tend to use the supplier SKU code that they provide you when you buy the product for them. This enables you to tie it directly to your inventory system, and so you can have your inventory system track it by SKU code, which lets you know when a certain product is getting low and you need to reorder it. You can simply pull that SKU code out, email the vendor that you're dealing with or the supplier you're dealing with, and have them reship the product that you need. It also makes it easy when you're receiving it into inventory if you're using the same SKU code, because the system will clearly identify that once you go ahead and receive those items into inventory. I'm not going to spend too much time going any further in regards to the products and services. The key information that you want to have in here are categories, the sales information description. So this is the description of the service associated with this particular either product or service, and sales price and rate. So obviously the rate associated with the product, either the particular product and or service. Again, taking the time to get these set up will pay dividends for you later. The other point that I would like to make in here is once you have a product and service in the system that you have used in the past, please do not go back in to either the chart of accounts or products and service and delete an item. It is one of the biggest mistakes that I see within both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. Here's the deal. Once you have tagged to any one of the chart of accounts in any way, the system is able to retain that information. Once you delete the item from the chart of accounts, you lose that information. And when you lose that information, you're no longer able to run reports. The answer to this question is to deactivate that specific line item within your chart of accounts. That way it is not visible to be used, but all the information relevant to that specific line item is able to be tracked and still run reports on. Please keep that in mind as you go through this process, because one of the things that I do see is people build out these large chart of accounts, expenses may hit them, and then they choose to delete them and come back to me and go, oh my gosh, Damon, why are things not balancing out? Well, when you deleted that specific chart of account, you deleted all the transactions that it hit that particular chart of accounts as well. Please keep that in mind when it comes to doing cleanup within the chart of accounts and products and services. Linking your bank accounts and importing transactions. So honestly, this is probably the single easiest part about our QuickBooks Online. It is a super easy process to just literally, you go into their linking account systems within the online system. It asks what bank you're with, and then it basically requests the sign-in that you use to log into your bank account. Again, understand that they are using SSL 128, the highest level encryption. It's the same encryption that is used by your bank. The information being communicated across is super, super safe. Again, one of the key aspects of what makes QuickBooks Online great. Once you have this set up, the system has the ability to bring in all the relevant information from your bank into your system, though it makes it easier for you to not only reconcile your books at the end of the month, but keep track of where your cash positions are and what is taking place at your bank. Again, this can be displayed on the dashboard when you initially open up QuickBooks Online. Much as I just talked about linking up your bank account, you can also link up your credit card. Another great way to keep on top of where your business is in regards to that. I always like to recommend that businesses link their credit cards and keep it in the system here. One of my key bits of advice that I offer to small businesses starting out is you tend to like to have a credit card on file. Credit cards help you build credit. Credit is what helps you grow your business in turn when cash flow is tight. The comment I always like to make in this regard is credit is the ability to pay debt back, not the ability to be in debt. Always remember that when you're working with building your credit for your business. There are many ways to go about it, but having a credit card on file so that you're making regular payments is one of the best ways for a new small business to build up credit. Again, any people out there that are starting a new business out and looking in regards to how they can build their business credit, it's a great opportunity for you to reach out to the SBDC consultants and sit down and have a meeting with how you can go about that. We talked about how to add a transaction. So one of the key features that is really, really nice about QuickBooks Online is the ability to match transactions. So as an example, you have a customer who submits a credit card payment, you got your invoice in the mail, they click on the link, they punch in the credit card, your invoice is paid, it goes directly through. QuickBooks has the ability to pull that information directly, and the only responsibility you have now is matching that transaction up with the invoice that's generated. And one of the things that QuickBooks does really, really well is show you how to match these transactions up. We spend a little bit more time in the intermediate process on specifically intermediate class, on specific steps that you want to take to ensure that you're accurately tracking your receivables coming in and posting those transactions to the correct invoice. There's nothing worse than posting an incorrect transaction to an invoice to a customer, only to have that customer call you up saying, oh, I have an invoice saying I haven't paid, but I submitted my payment 2 weeks ago. Take the time to get really comfortable with this portion of QuickBooks Online. It will make your life that much easier moving forward. Also, try to make it, if you have large amounts of transactions, try to make it part of either your daily procedure or your weekly procedure. One of the areas that I have seen with QuickBooks Online is where customers wait to do this reconciliation until the end of the month, thinking that they can just go in and go through all these transactions and match them up. You most certainly can, but what you will tend to find is that it's a lot larger amount of transactions you're dealing with, and sometimes it can create confusion because sometimes the banks don't always provide the necessary description that makes it easy for you to tie that specific receivable to an invoice that is currently in the system. Let's see, we have a question again from Denise. If your PayPal and Venmo accounts transfer to your business bank account, do you have to link those accounts to the QBO to avoid the duplicate transactions? So if your PayPal and Venmo accounts run through your bank, the answer to that question is no. You're not going to want to do that for the very reason you just stated. It's going to create duplicate transactions. You would let PayPal and Venmo consolidate it for you at the bank level, and then the bank level transaction would report in. The one caveat to this that I'd like to just talk about really, really quickly is the fact that, some of these online or credit card processing companies charge you a very small fee. And what tends to happen in this case is that when you receive that transaction back from a payment perspective, you are less that transaction fee. Now, obviously, people like Venmo and what have you don't encounter, but there are other credit card processing where that does take place. So an example would be that you generated a $100 invoice for a customer. You sent that invoice out to the customer. That customer went in, processed their payment through any one of the third parties out there. That third party charged you 1% for the transaction, and you only receive a $99 payment coming back. This is something whereby you're going to want to establish a chart of accounts line item to track those credit card fees as they are an expense to your business from an overall perspective. These are kind of some of the small things that you will encounter when you utilize the online payment system itself. Denise, hopefully I answered that question for you, but certainly let me know if I didn't. So again, just touching briefly on the batch processing, bringing the information in and lining those payments up. Don't want to go too far into this at this point in time because it does tend to create a little bit of confusion. We're still in the process of getting your company up and running, your chart of its accounts established, your invoices going out to your customers, you paying your vendors on time. All these processes are taking place. In many ways, if I was asked for a recommendation, if you have less than 10 transactions a day, you probably could consolidate on a weekly basis. I tend to say if you have more than 10 transactions a day, I would look to be going in on a daily basis and tagging these transactions. It will make your life easier in the long run. Setting up bank rules, another great aspect. And in fact, it ties back to one of Denise's questions that we talked about earlier. You can specify key rules that you would want the system to have when it relates to how it interacts to the bank. Bank rules allow greater control of bank transactions as they are added to the QuickBooks Online company. Bank rules can be defined via money in or money out, and the bank account, the transaction it relates to. If you have more than one bank account, so you might have multiple bank accounts that you pay out of for your specific business or receive payments in from. The transactions can be identified using separate conditions. Bank text, using the logic contains or does not contain. Description, using the logic of contains is exactly or does not contain. Amount of using logic, equal, is greater than, is less than, or doesn't equal. Up to 5 separate conditions can be added to complete the rules and allocate a payee category. Talked about the category coding a little long. Apply a tax code or apply a tax class or a location. I do see this specifically coming into play when a specific company or event or a specific client has multiple locations that they're doing business at. Once these rules are established, you do have the ability to go back and edit them to meet your needs. Understanding what you are using these specific rules for, though, are key. Again, if you have questions in regards to these specific items, I would certainly recommend that you spend a little bit more time getting comfortable or set an appointment to meet with a consultant in that regard. Not going to spend too much time on creating and managing quotes. I'm almost assured that if you've run your business in any way, you've had to create a quote before. Once you have the customer set up within the system, you are able to generate a quote that is then able to be converted over to an invoice very, very simply. Once you're in the system under the customer, you simply go to create customer quote. And from there, with the products and services that are built in the system, you can build a quote that can be then sent directly to the client. Once the client you get the response from the client saying, great, let's go ahead and do that. It's simply a matter of converting that QuickBooks create a quote over to a QuickBooks invoice that is then sent directly out to your customer. A really easy and simple process that they've created within QuickBooks to streamline the quote to invoice portion of it. Wrong way. Let's go to creating and managing invoices. Again, not going to spend too much time on creating and managing invoices. If we've ever utilized any kind of ERP or QuickBooks in the past, we have our vendors set up. We've utilized going in and pulling the information to create a customer invoices. We've selected the products and services. We've got our tax accrual set up correctly. QuickBooks is then generating the invoice and emailing it directly to our client. They get the invoice in a timely and effective manner and have the ability to pay that invoice right away online, which in turn you will see the posting in your QuickBooks the very next day. Again, if you do need more help with this, we are certainly available to that. Some of the things that we've worked on in regards to creating invoices, everything from how to set it up to how to create a template and what is involved in that. Again, we are here to support and help you guys. If you have any of those questions, just let us know. Receiving payments of invoices. So this is a key aspect that we touched on earlier with both the payment system, possibly using a credit card, Venmo, PayPal, but we still have those customers out there that invariably still want to write a paper check, put it in the mail, and send it through. As always, QuickBooks has the ability to go ahead and receive that payment moves into your online deposit so that when you walk down to the bank with the paper check or do a virtual deposit, those transactions will directly tie out. Customizing an invoice, briefly touched on this. Remember, your invoice in many ways is not just a bill to your customer. It's a way to say, hey, I'm the business that's helping you and supporting your business to grow. So things like having your logo, your name, your contact information on there are key. You want your customer to be able to reach you if they have a question about your invoice, because here's what's not happening. If they have a question about an invoice, guess what they're not doing? They're not paying it. So keep in mind that you want to have this information clear and defined on your invoice. If they have any questions, it's super easy for them to reach out and get their questions or answers answered. This expedites them making their payment to you in a timely manner. Please keep that in mind. It's a simple thing, but it really doesn't have an impact on how and when you're receiving payments from your customers. Attachments. Oh, I love this feature. I really, really do. So back in the day with QuickBooks, you'd be sitting at your desktop, typing in a bill or typing in an invoice, and you take it and you go to the file folder, you pull the file folder out, you look for H and you drop it in. Well, the great thing is by the end of the year, I would have 8 full of these filing cabinets filled with bills, receipts, and everything else in between. Not anymore. If you have a bill that you're entering the system with QuickBooks, if you have a digital copy of that bill, you actually have the ability to physically attach that document to the bill that is being entered in the system. This is a great resource if ever you need to go back and reference that bill. You may have the bill that you typed into the system, but we always have to account for things like human error, not only on your side, but on the side that you received that particular bill or invoice from. Having the ability to go back months later and actually look at the physical bill that you received from someone and to reference it back against what is entered in QuickBooks is a key resource. They have made this very, very simple. I'm not going to read through this whole page, but there's basically a paper clip that is within the invoice or the bill that you're generating that enables you to attach a digital document. It is associated with that specific invoice and or bill and enables you to go back and look at that at any time. The one caveat is it is limited to 25 megabytes per each attachment. That is a huge amount of information, just if anybody's wondering. I've never actually come across anyone that's gone past it, but it is something I'd like to point out. So with that said, another great aspect about limiting the paper flow, one of the key aspects of doing business and in the world that I live in is limiting the amount of paper that I see coming across my desk, or more importantly, that I'm having to touch and enter. Again, understanding that there's always that human element in what we do. In many ways, we want to limit the amount of human input as much as possible to both maximize the efficiency, productivity, and quality of work that's being delivered. Bills. Going back to what we just talked about. We talked about invoice, let's talk about bills. So bills, entering the bills into the system, simple process, chart of accounts are set up, tagging to specific line items. We're then putting in the terms so that we know exactly when this bill is due. The system is going to remind us each week that we come in when that bill is due. We can then offset this by looking at our cash flow, ensuring that we will have the funds on hand to be able to pay that bill. What's involved in paying a bill? Well, again, just like what we talked about on the credit card processing side and matching transactions up, you have the ability to pay via both check and a payment system online, whether you're using a credit card or a direct link to your bank account. Do keep this in mind. One of the things that you can utilize to regulate your cash flow system is being clearly on top of what's receivable and what's in payable each week when you review your company file. Again, setting your dashboard up so that you have a clear understanding of it will enable you to make the right decisions for your business. Again, one of the biggest issues that small startups have to encounter and deal with is cash flow. Nothing will shut your door faster and put you out of business, not having a clear understanding of the money coming in and the money going out. Reoccurring transactions. So again, if you know you have a specific transaction that's taking place every month, you're paying the internet bill and it's a fixed charge, you most certainly have the ability to go ahead and set up a reoccurring transaction within the system. Well, the system will automatically go ahead and generate that for you without having to wait for the vendor to send you this bill. This is just another way for you to automate the process of paying the necessary vendors that you need to ensure that your business is moving forward. It's a very simple and easy procedure to go ahead and do. As stated on the screen right here, click on the gear icon, go down to the list and click on reoccurring transactions. Again, taking the time to set these up while you are setting QuickBooks Online up will save you volumes of time. With that said, you always have the ability to go back and edit these should you need to. Class and location coding. So class coding right away is a more advanced portion of the QuickBooks Online. I'm not going to spend too much time on here. The only part about this page that I do want to talk about is if you are doing business in more than one location, you do have the ability within the class coding to specify that location and break them out by location. This enables you from a reporting perspective to be able to run reporting on a specific location. So in my world that I used to live in, working with wineries, the wineries might have 3 different tasting rooms that they want to track who's getting the most business, who's the most popular. Simple things like that. We can use class coding to designate a specific location, and that way in turn we can run custom reporting based on a specific location. Again, we go into a lot more detail in the intermediate and more advanced class in regards to class and location tracking. Again, part of this is just to highlight the sheer amount of tools and flexibilities that QuickBooks Online does have. Partial purchase orders. I don't want to go too deep into partial purchase orders, but I do want to talk about purchase orders in general. If you've ever run a business in any way and ordered something out there and had it as a receivable coming in, purchase orders are a great way to track what has been received, what hasn't been received, what has been paid for. Purchase orders are super easy to set up in the system and tag by line item. The other part about the particular purchase orders that I like is you can directly tie your purchase orders to your inventory control system. What this means is that at any one time, your inventory control system, based on your purchase order setup, can track what you have received and what you are expecting to receive. So as an example, we put an order out for 1,000 water bottles that we need to get in, but the supplier can only ship 500. Once those 500 water bottles hit our warehouse and are received in by QuickBooks into its inventory control system, the system automatically knows, because of your purchase order, that you ordered 1,000, you've received 500, and you should still have 500 on the way. This means that when you go into the system to fulfill an order for a specific customer, you know that you have a purchase order out there for 1,000, but you do not have 1,000 on hand. Unfortunately, you only have 500 on hand. This is a fantastic way to really wrap your arms around your inventory control system and ensure that you're meeting the needs of your customers out there. There's nothing worse than having a customer call up to order a product or a service and you're not able to provide it because you don't have accurate numbers inside your inventory control system. Again, inventory control can be a real headache if it is not set up correctly and tracked correctly within QuickBooks. One of the key aspects of tracking it correctly is utilizing the purchase order system within QuickBooks Online to do that. I'm not going to walk everyone through the process of setting up a purchase order at this exact moment in time. If you do have further questions relating to it, we can certainly spend some time and talk about it. I do go into quite a bit more detail because I tie it specifically to the class coding, which is also tied to the location coding for QuickBooks Online. I'm going to pause for 1 second there and see if there are any questions. I've been talking for an hour and a half now. Like I'm doing all the talking here, and I want to make sure I'm answering any questions or concerns that you may have out there. All right, moving forward. Let's talk about budgets. Now, one of the key aspects of running a business and keeping yourself on track is having a budget. In many ways, I deal with a lot of teams that come out of Cal Poly, or fresh out of Cal Poly, have all these wonderful ideas about starting a business and how successful they be, and they've got a business plan and they know how they're going to execute on it. Your budget is a roadmap to success for your business. It's like the bumpers on a bowling alley that ensure you're heading in the right direction and not getting yourself in trouble by spending in areas that you shouldn't. Take the time to set up a budget for your company and put it in the system, even if it's the very first time you're doing it. It will help you in the long run understand where your cash is going to support your business, and more importantly, where you need to invest your cash to support your business and grow it. Building a budget in QuickBooks is a super, super simple process. With that said, though, you need to have a clear understanding of what it takes to build a budget for your company. Taking the time to go back and look at what you've done in years past to really accurately build a good budget. Also understand, though, that if this is your first time building a budget for a company, you can always modify it as you go along. But the key learning experience of building a budget and holding your employees accountable to those budget items within your specific budget is what's going to make your company successful. This is how you're going to be able to increase revenue, lower costs, and invest those savings back into your company to make your company grow and become a successful business. We spend quite a bit of time here with the small business SBDC, getting companies to really understand the importance of having a budget and tracking against your budget. There's no point in building a budget, putting it in QuickBooks, and then ignoring it in every possible way. And yes, there are people that do that. Don't do that to yourself. If you're going to put a budget into and take the time and effort to put a budget into QuickBooks, utilize that budget and feel comfortable with utilizing that budget. Again, there are a number of great resources out there at Intuit's website in regards to how to build a budget within QuickBooks. Again, there are also SBDC consultants always available to work with you and help you build that budget out. Budget versus actual. So this is the key aspect of what I just talked about. The point of putting a budget into your system is really a performance metrics that you can use it again. Are we maintaining within the budget to hit the performance that we need to? This is the budget that you establish versus what is actually taking place. And the great part about this is QuickBooks is able to generate, online specifically, is able to generate a number of key reports, both on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis that will ensure that you are meeting the necessary goals with your budget versus actuals to achieve the revenue and the cash flow that you need. Again, understanding what you had in mind and what's taking place is key to the success of your business. That's why having a budget in the system really is so important to the success of your business as you move forward. Again, I can't recommend enough how important it is for your business to really have that roadmap to success, which is not only a business plan, but a budget that ties along to that business plan to get you there. We spend a ton of time in the intermediate course going over how to look at those budget versus actuals. The key part that I will tell you is QuickBooks Online does a wonderful job in this. Once you have it in the system, it actually shows up on your dashboard on a daily basis, if you wish to show you exactly where you are in regards to the budget versus actuals. This is key for you to understand where costs are hitting and make sure that you're keeping your costs under control. As an example, if you had a $10,000 budget for your year, for your company, for supplies, 3 months into the year, you've spent $5,000, probably not going to stay under budget at the end of the year. But QuickBooks is quickly able to identify for you where those funds are going and why we're spending so much. Now you need to ask the question, why am I spending half of my supply budget in a quarter of the year? This is where you're going back to your office manager and say, help me understand what's taking place. Again, a key way to understand what's taking place with your business and what controls can be put in place to ensure that you're profitable moving forward. Projects. Don't spend too much time on projects. The way I like to explain projects to people is that you have a project that you're working on for multiple locations and you want to be able to track it by a specific either business or entity itself. This is where projects come into play. Now, as a construction company, we would have a vendor that we worked with, or would be a subcontractor, and we'd have these projects built out underneath that might be in multiple locations. But don't want to go too much into this, as it does tend to create a little bit of confusion in regards to how projects can be set up. The best example I would give you with small businesses that I've worked with locally is someone like a flower vendor that I have who grows flowers, and every Thursday at the farmer's market, when it was open, would go sell her flowers. But she would sell it at the Avila Beach Farmers Market, and then she would sell it at the Slow Farmers Market, and then she would sell it at the Rio Grande Farmers Market. And she really wanted to be able to track each location and see which location was most profitable, which location did she get the most clients and customers coming to her from. This is where you would possibly use the project portion of QuickBooks Online, where you could build it out specifically where it's the same /customer vendor that you're dealing with, but beneath that have multiple locations that you would be able to run custom reporting on. Not going to go into to the project centers right now. It gets way too deep into it. The one aspect of it that is nice is you can build custom budgets within each project. Should you have one, you're able to track against those custom projects within them and keep yourself on point. There's nothing worse than having a project that you're working on, have a specified budget, and then getting to the end of that project and realize that the 5% overhead that you had built in, that was going to be your revenue, was completely wiped out because you went 10% over budget. Happens all the time, all the time. So again, having a clear understanding of what's taking place with your business, what projects you're working on, and how to track those expenses is key to your success. We touched on this briefly earlier. QuickBooks does have a payroll portion to it. It is a really, really robust and really good. A lot of companies and a lot of startups do choose to utilize QuickBooks into its payroll system as an add-on subscription. I do have nothing but good things to say about it. The one thing I will say is I have seen scalability issues, personally speaking, with QuickBooks Payroll. And this is where some customers tend to go out and use some of the larger payroll processing companies like Paychex and ADP, et cetera. Do keep that in mind. With that said, my experience has been that any company that has up to 100 employees QuickBooks Payroll has no issues with dealing with it. The other part that's really great is it's constantly tracking it real time for you, as opposed to having to push the data out to a third party and then re-import that data back in. Something to keep in mind when you make the decision about whether you want to use QuickBooks Payroll. All the teams that come through the hothouse here that are setting up themselves as a business that utilize QuickBooks, I do have them use payroll initially, mostly because the lack of knowledge around payroll can be really, really dangerous when it comes to payroll processing. Unless you've had experience on the payroll side and you've never worked with payroll, I would recommend using the payroll system within QuickBooks. Again, if you have questions in regards to payroll in particular, don't hesitate to reach out to a consultant. I don't want to go too far. Okay, so this is one of the key aspects that I want to spend a little bit of time on. So if you are importing or bringing over data from another system, or you've tracked it anywhere outside QuickBooks before, one of the most important aspects of setting it up correctly is getting your open balance to tie. So your opening balance is the balance that you're moving over from your previous old desktop system or ERP to what that opening balance will be in the QuickBooks. Take the time to make sure that your opening balance is correct. If you don't know how to look that up, if you are not sure what that is, then ask. I can't tell you how important this opening balance is. If you don't get this opening balance right, everything that we've talked about up until this point will not tie out correctly. And at the end of the day, from a reconciliation point of view, one of the key aspects of utilizing QuickBooks Online is that you are going to use it to reconcile your books and ensure that your balances tie out. This is your best way to ensure that you are actually accurately tracking your revenue and expenses coming in. But it all starts with ensuring that that opening balance is correct within your system. Don't want to spend too many times, but I do. Oh, there we go. Jeff Wade. Let's see. Hey, Jeff, let's see what we got. Yeah, I get time cards for the last month on the 1st. Then I have to manually adjust the payroll date for it to reflect last month. Anything I should do? So my first question is, are you doing it in online or desktop? Because the process to do what you're talking about is a little different in both. The only other option that I would recommend out there is to do an accrual entry. Yeah. See, okay, so now Jeff, being Jeff, the great Jeff that he is, he's pointing out one of the limitations of QuickBooks Online. See, on QuickBooks Desktop, I could create an accrual that I could then leave in there and just change the designation within the accrual so that he doesn't have to move that entry back. But unfortunately, with QuickBooks Online, you do not have the ability to do it yet. I do know that they are working on a system to integrate it into QuickBooks Online, but I will also tell you that the last conference I went to with Intuit 18 months ago, they told me that that was something they were working on. 18 months later, I have not heard a peep or a word in regards to this. So to answer your question, no, Jeff, not within QuickBooks Online. The only way for you to do it would be able to have to go in manually and change that specific date. Again, these are just some of the small limitations that QuickBooks may have. In this case, you probably find Jeff is getting the time cards from a person after that date has passed, which is why he has to then go back and modify that date. Did I answer your question for you, Jeff? Awesome. Okay, moving forward. I'm not going to go too deep into the payroll. Once you've got payroll set up, it is a very easy process to process payroll. I'm not going to go in it. This is the beginning session. If I go into payroll, it's like going down Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole. It's the same way with taxes. These are two areas that I try to dedicate more time in both the intermediate and the advanced class. Setting up employees. Okay, so we've talked about products and services. We've talked about chart of accounts. The other area that you really want to make sure that you're spending the time and effort is setting up your employees. This goes to things like withholding, setting the employee's information up correctly. This has a direct impact on their paycheck and what they're receiving. And I don't know about you, but if I see something on my paycheck that's not right, I can't tell you how quickly I'm on the phone to HR or somebody else. Trust me when I say your employees will be the same way. So the one thing that QuickBooks does really well with the online system is it's a really simple process. It asks you all the necessary questions to get your employee set up quickly and easily if you have that relevant information. The following prompts need to be set up through the ad wizard within QuickBooks: basic details, banking information, employment details, tax filing declarations, W-9s on file. Denise has a question. If I set a company up as an S corporation, would the QuickBooks Online then generate an account for a common stock and additional paid in capital rather than a sole prop owner, investment owner drawer? The long and the short of that is yes, it would. But the key part to this is how you set up the common stock position within the accounts, in the chart of accounts. This is a little bit more complex in the way that we would go about setting this up, and the drawdowns that you would have in that regard. What we should do here, Denise, is this is a little bit more of a detailed question that I probably can answer on this call right now. If afterwards, when we're done with this, you want to stay on the line, I can certainly go into a little bit more detail for you in answering that question. Olivia, can you just hold on to that question for me so I can come back to it at the end when we have a little bit of free time to talk in a little bit more detail for her about it?
Yes.
Because it's a great question. Again, just finishing up on talking about the setting up of the employees, really just ensuring that you have that relevant information there. The good thing is the wizard will not let you move forward unless you enter the relevant information that is needed at this point in time. Not going to go too deep into the setup and pay payroll. We spent a lot more time in the advanced class going through this. Once it is set up correctly, though, it is honestly simply a matter of ensuring that your employees are entering their time accurately. If you're a project-based system that we touched on briefly earlier, you want to make sure that they're tagging to the correct projects. Once this is set up, it's really an easy process to run the payroll on a Friday or whatever days you set. The system will designate to you exactly the funds that need to be available to process payroll out for yourself. And from there, it's a simple process of executing on. QuickBooks sends the information out and generates the full payroll for you. Again, we go into a lot more detail in the intermediate and the advanced class. I spent a lot more time on the advanced class talking about the payroll reporting and the tax liability side of this. QuickBooks does a really good job in that regard, so I don't like to get too deep into the payroll question at this point in time. Okay, let's do it. I do like to touch on payroll reports. So I am a big fan of payroll reports, having the ability to run specific reports for your employees to understand the activity report, the run rate order report, the leave balance reports, the leave availability reports. These are key reports that you're going to want to run to have a clear understanding of your employees and their review of what's taking place with those specific employees. This is an area where QuickBooks does an exceptional job of delivering the level and detail of reports that you're going to need to manage your employees from an overall perspective. This ensures that they are working on the correct projects, tagging time to the correct projects, and more importantly, from your perspective, accruing in the correct areas, whether it be leave or sick leave liability or anything else. You also have the ability to run payment summaries, which will reflect what the total liability of your payroll is at specific times, whether it be weekly, monthly, quarterly. This is great, again, for you to regulate and control your cash flow, knowing that what your staffing levels are and what your current staffing levels are and where they need to be based on seasonality, business, the busyness of your business per se. I'm not even going to go through super users right now. Bank consolidation. Let's talk about this one because I do like this aspect of it. So we talked a little earlier about the ability to receive credit card payments and process credit payments out tag transactions to invoices. The key aspect of QuickBooks that I really like in this regard is the bank reconciliation. Once you have your bank accounts linked up, it does a fantastic job of helping you reconcile your bank statement in regards to what you have within QuickBooks. And the key aspect about this is if you're diligent in going in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis and tagging those transactions, when you get to this, you should just have a nice clean screen and be ready just to click reconcile, in which point the system will completely reconcile, tie your balances off, and you're good to go into next month. But what if you're not? And this is the aspect that I probably spent more time on desktop dealing with, because back in the day, we did not have the reconciliation process in play. So you were specifically looking at specific transactions to ensure that your balance is tied out. One of the quick things that QuickBooks does really, really well is point out where a particular item is not matching or tie it up, and gives you the detail to really go back and ensure that this specific transaction that is taking place at my bank is matching up with the transaction that is taking place in QuickBooks. The small example I will give you is an invoice that's paid by a credit card where you sent the invoice out to the customer at $100, but you only received that $99 in. This is where you would pick up on that $1 shortfall in the system, especially if your accounts receivable individual has gone ahead and even only been paid $100, just gone ahead and plugged in $100 in receivables there. You're not necessarily going to catch it, because unless you're going into the bank to see what actually hit for that, this is where QuickBooks does a great job for you of getting you to clearly understand what is taking place. Take the time to be comfortable with this. Take the time to train someone to be comfortable with this. This should take place at the end of every month before you start your next cycle. That is the only way that you're going to stay on top of the financials aspect of your business. I cannot tell you how much work it takes me to go back and reconcile a business for an entire year. The loss of time and the expense that is incurred in this regard, only because they don't want to take the time and the effort to reconcile their books at the end of the month. It is one of the most important aspects of QuickBooks Online, and ensuring the financial aspect of your business is correct is making sure that you take the time to do this task. Super easy to do and super easy to process if you do it correctly. Simply, the system will literally walk you through what the starting balance is to what the ending balance is. If there's a differential in there, you need to go out, find it, and solve for the problem. I can't reiterate how important it is to be doing this, especially if you're unsure about what transactions are taking place. Remember, the garbage in, garbage out aspect of it is key here. If you do not have good and accurate information coming in, it makes it very, very hard for the system to accurately report the financial well-being of your business. Do I recommend reconciling all companies' accounts on a monthly basis? Absolutely. Absolutely. Unless there's a specific reason that you do not, i.e. you have a specific flow-through scenario, which is very unique, you should always be reconciling your books. Always ensuring that your balances, because the problem here, people, is once you don't, you can keep perpetuating a problem, right? So if your balance at your bank and your balance in QuickBooks do not tie up for whatever reason, but you don't reconcile, whatever problem is in there is being perpetuated each month. It is going to take you twice as long to solve the issue if you haven't reconciled your books for 6 months. And all of a sudden you go in the bank and you've got this $30,000 differential between what the bank says you have and what QuickBooks says you have. Don't go down that rabbit hole. You'll spend days trying to go back and figure out, where did I go wrong? What transaction made me have $30,000 more at the bank that I'm not seeing in QuickBooks? Take the time, have a process. One of the things that I always used to recommend is I used to have a monthly closeout procedure for the QuickBooks Online. And maybe it's something I should make a part of these little sessions that I do, is things that you really want to go through and close out. And if I was one thing that I would put at the top of the list, it's reconciling the accounts. I mean, like accounts receivable, accounts payable, owner investment, in addition to the, oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially, this gets even more tricky and more complicated depending on if you're providing products and services. Services tend to be a little bit different only because of the way that they're billed and tracked. But if you are selling a specific product and are sending those products out consistently, I absolutely. Also, from the owner investment portion of this and the drawdowns associated with that, you absolutely want to make sure that you're reconciling them correctly, because as you well know, if you get off track on any of those drawdowns, it certainly makes it that much harder months down the lines to be correcting and fixing these things. And what tends to be happening is once you've closed out a period and locked it, you really don't want to have to unlock those periods and go back, which means you're starting to do things like journals to solve these issues. The first thing I will tell you about journals is they are red flags for auditors. Stay away from them if you can. They are there as a solution in your system, but they are not the ideal solution to solve your issues. What you're telling me with a journal when I see a journal is I got a problem, I wasn't able to solve that problem in the period that the problem occurred, and therefore I need to use this journal to rectify it. As a person that used to audit, it's the very first thing I would ask for when I walked into a company was, let me see your journal log, right? And I get handed a book over the last 3 months, and there's 42 journal entries. Okay, somebody's not doing something right, because there's no way we should have this many journal entries. If you have that many journal entries, something is either not being done right, set up right, or processed right. So again, taking the time to ensure that you are reconciling all your accounts within the system. Now, I do want to be clear here. Look, if there's a specific reason you're not and you have it set up on a quarterly basis for a specific purpose, that is a little bit more understandable. But have a schedule that clearly dictates to you when and what is taking place so that you are comfortable with what is taking place in the account. Okay, bank reconciliation tools, just touched on it really briefly. Great tool, super easy to use. Take the time to get comfortable with it. There are a ton of training modules as well with short YouTube videos that will walk you through this, where it's the beginning balance and the ending balance. And if there's a delta in there, that's what you're going back to look for. Very simple, very easy to do. Just make it part of your weekly, monthly procedures, or train an employee to do it for you. So touching on what Denise was talking about really briefly is to reconcile specific accounts. This is where you can specify specific accounts that you want to reconcile. This is where I was going to spend some time talking to you, Denise, afterwards about utilizing these tools to reconcile some of the items that you were referencing. This is where we would start with that. Now, I don't want to go into too many details because this is really specific to specific accounts that you want to look at and the history of that particular account. But do know that this tool is available to you. I would say that it's more of an intermediate to advanced users that probably are going to want it because they are going to have some form of financial, I would either say knowledge base or experience in dealing with this. Auto adjustments. So I don't want to spend too much time on the auto adjustments because I'm not the biggest fan of what auto adjustments are, but really what it is the system automatically going through and reconciling the system for you and adjusting it as necessary. If you're doing it correctly, this is not something you really should have to worry about. Sorry, thought I saw another question come through. This is really not something you should have to worry about. And if you are, I really would like you to come to me and ask me the question before you're doing this. Though it is a great feature within there, I don't like using this tool. It's a lazy man's way out. I'd rather have us reconciling and tying the balances out correctly. Again, if there are any more questions on this particular line item, please don't hesitate to post them or we can follow up a little later. Okay, let's move to, no, we're not going to touch on BSAs. Complete BSAs don't even relate to us anymore. Nope. No taxes, running reports. The last section I wanted to touch on before we are done today. So, as I touched on before, one of the great aspects and the abundance of resources that are available within QuickBooks is the ability to run reports. And every kind of imaginable report that you can imagine. One of the great aspects about the reporting system is not only are you able to run pre-designed reports by Intuit, but you are actually also able to go out and find reports that other businesses have generated to meet their needs that you are then able to use as a template for use. I can't tell you what a great resource this is. This has saved me a lot of time and effort in a lot of different ways when I've needed to either try build a customer report or gone out and looked and holy beholy, somebody else has already done it for me. And all I have to do is download it and load the data up. They give you sample templates to look exactly what it will look like and when and what that particular document will look like once you generate it. This is a fantastic tool. There's a ton of customization that is available within the reporting as well, but on the online version, it is limited. The features that are available on the desktop are certainly more advanced. And I will be honest with you here, this right here is the single biggest reason, other than payroll, that I see individuals go from QuickBooks Online back to QuickBooks Desktop, is this aspect of it. Now, again, the online version does a great job, but if you're looking for more technical and specific reporting abilities, there are limitations within the QuickBooks Online versus the QuickBooks Desktop. With that said, if you're a small company starting up or a small business that is running, all the reporting that is available to you here will more than meet your needs. But if you're a larger company who has to deal with things like investors and deal with stockholders and deal with people that you are having to report to from a justification standpoint, I would highly consider the desktop version. I only say this because every single time I've run into this issue with more advanced companies, I have encountered the fact that they do not like the online system's ability to customize those reports and invariably end up going back to the desktop version. Now, I'm not saying that you should go back solely for that reason alone, but I absolutely have seen businesses do it. So to keep that in mind, again, profit and loss, balance sheet, the two most frequently produced reports in QuickBooks. Those are generic templates that are available to you. They will provide you all the necessary information that you need. If you need to customize those reports to a different level, you might want to look at using the desktop. Customer reporting. So again, just like we talked about all the other reporting abilities, you literally have the ability to dig down into a specific customer, look at what they're buying from you, look at the frequency with what they're buying from you. This is a great way for you to really understand who are those companies out there, who are those customers out there that are really helping me grow my company. This in turn enables you to reach out and really work with those customers to increase the level of service, the quality of the product. Understanding who your customer is in many ways is the most important part of making your business successful. And ensuring that you're meeting their needs and wants is only going to be one of the biggest factors that helps move your business forward. Not going to go into report groups right now. Not going to go into automated reports right now. What I will say is one of the nice features about QuickBooks is it does have the ability to automate certain reporting processes. As an example, if you want QuickBooks to generate a profit and loss report for you on the first of each month, once your financials are closed out, you can have that generated. It will email it directly to you and it'll be available to you. This is one of the methods that I used when I was tracking accounts receivable and accounts payable. I would have the system generate that every week on a Friday evening. So when I came in Monday morning, I had a clear view of what I was looking at for the following week. These are simple procedures that you can put in place for yourself or your employees to ensure that you're staying on top of things like your cash flow, your inventory, everything else that's taking place with your business. Again, another great resource on hand for you to have a clear insight into what's taking place with your company. The mobile app. So we touched on this really briefly earlier on. One of the great aspects about QuickBooks is the ability to keep yourself constantly connected. Having the app on both your iPhone and or an Android gives you real-time information in regards to what you or your employees are entering in the system. It also gives you the ability to generate quotes, invoices, purchase orders on hand on your digital device right then and there. Whether it's an iPad or an Android device, you have the ability to do most, if not all, the operations that you could on a desktop on your mobile device. This is one of the areas that people love most about QuickBooks. I would say they feel that they are constantly connected with their business and can stay on top of it. And it is probably the biggest selling point for QuickBooks Online is that constant connection. It is a great tool. Fantastic tool. I can't tell you how many people love the idea of constantly being connected, especially if you're a small or a startup, one-person business that is looking to really stay on top. You're meeting with clients, you're out and about, but you still want to have the ability to produce a quote, email a client, send out an invoice, order something from inventory. The app will keep you connected and give you clear insight to exactly where your business is at. I'm not going to go over the logins. We talked about it. These are just basically the procedures to get into the system, log into your portable device, get digital signatures. I'm going to jump all the way to the customer care portion of this. I did highlight this right at the beginning. You know, QuickBooks has great resources on hand throughout the world. Utilize the support center that they have online. Utilize the 800 number. They appreciate the feedback. One of the things that I really like about QuickBooks is I actually interact with the developers at times, only because I'm working with students and they have constant wants and needs. And I'm often going in there and saying, well, hey, is there any chance we could get this? And lo and behold, 3 to 4 days later, I get an email from it saying, we got your email and we really appreciate your feedback and we're working on this and we will get back to you. And guess what, folks? They actually tend to get back to you. So it's one of the aspects that I do like about QuickBooks. I've used this more than once. I can't say that they've ever implemented anything I suggested, but at least they're responding and I hear that hearing the ideas in regards to that. Do utilize it. It's a great way to stay in contact with them as well. And again, having a ton of resources at hand. With that said, that is all I have today for our first of the year QuickBooks Online 101. Denise, if you wouldn't mind staying on the line so I can spend some time talking to you. Everybody else, if there's any questions, concerns, comments, please let us know. The other part I would say is please give me some feedback. You know, in doing these online classes, I can only make them as good as the feedback that I get. This is only the third one I've done online. I actually prefer to do these in person. It's a lot harder to do these online and know which specific areas you really want me to focus on or where you're not comfortable with. So giving me the feedback to say, hey, Damon, could you spend a little bit more time on payroll maybe next time? Or could we talk about chart of accounts a little bit more? I would really appreciate that feedback. It really helps me really build these slide decks to what your needs are. Again, doing it by the online is a little bit different. When I'm sitting in a room with 20 people and I start talking about chart of accounts and I see somebody's eyes go glassy over, it's a little bit easier for me to take a step back and go, okay, do you understand what we're talking about? Do I need to spend a bit more time? Unfortunately, having that interaction out here through a Zoom meeting is a little bit harder. So your feedback is appreciated. And if there's anything else you would like to see in these specific sessions that we do be aware that I am going to do a desktop version of this coming up shortly. We do 2 intermediate classes, and at the end of the year, we do a tax reporting class as well, a more advanced class that is. But again, if we can help you in any way from a business perspective, from a consulting perspective, please let us know. We are here to support our local community. The SBDC, you know, as a whole, its primary role is to support small business. Though I affiliate with the SBDC, I work for Cal Poly, but I volunteer my time to do this because small business are the livelihood of our community here in SLO. And if you love where you live, you support those businesses, and this is why we do what we do. So thank you for everyone today. If there's any questions or any comments in regards to this, don't hesitate to reach out.